Hello and welcome back to another episode of the BARROW Podcast. Today we're looking at The End of Eddy by Edouard Louis. Is that how you say his name?
I think so.
I presume so.
But that is not his real name.
That is not his real name. No. So the blurb, Edouard Louis grew up in a village in northern France where many live below the poverty line. His best-selling debut novel about life there, The End of Eddy, has sparked debate on social inequalities, sexuality and violence. It is an extraordinary portrait of escaping from an unbearable childhood inspired by the author's own, written with an openness and compassionate intelligence. Ultimately, it asks, how can we create our own freedom? There you go.
There you go.
Novel. It's a novel. See, that's the thing, like... I kind of wondered why it was published as a novel.
It comes up in, if you read any of the reviews of it, and I guess it's worth noting that it's quite old now. It's like 2014.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, it comes up often that it was published as a Roman, I think that...
Romana Clef or whatever. Yeah.
But yes, it's quite clearly a memoir.
Yeah,
I don't think that he... kind of says otherwise. The next book in that is called Change, and it basically picks up at the end of, picks up where the End of Eddy ends, and just sort of follows him further as he's at university and stuff. So, I don't know, but I think that's something that kind of happens. It's sort of like that kind of where does the author?
Where's the line?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And is it meaningful? I don't know.
I don't think it's meaningful. I mean, I guess it just falls into that broad category of like autofiction is what they call it. And, but yeah, it seems like pretty classical straight memoir. I couldn't really understand why they bothered even ascribing novel to it at all. But I suppose it's like a legal thing, perhaps. Yeah.
Maybe. I can't imagine his parents were particularly litigious, but...
No, me neither. That's the other thing. Yeah.
Well, I can't remember. And the two books for me have kind of merged into one because they're the same story. But I think his dad eventually passes away. I'm not quite sure whether he, kind of feels like he's made up with him or something. But
yeah, right.
But yes. The thing about this book for me was I don't think that... Well, I think anybody would find something in it, particularly anybody that felt at some point like they were an outsider, because it's really about the character Eddy, who's up against pretty much everything,
Seemingly, yeah.
He's poverty-stricken. They're poverty-stricken. The house is falling down. They don't cook the food that he likes. He tends to be quite effeminate in his gesturing. He realises that he's gay. Everybody's homophobic. They're all alcoholics. I mean, it's just like this litany of I don't know, hurdles, let's say.
Yeah.
But and it's all right.
No, you go.
And it's kind of written in a way that I think the first time I read it, I was really unsure about whether I actually liked it or not.
Okay.
Because despite the fact that there's all of these terrible things that inhabit his life, he seems really kind of... It's quite sort of... I felt like it was a bit sort of venomous in a way, but then I decided that it really wasn't. It was actually kind of much more matter of fact, which kind of made it worse. Because, he tells it...
Funny.
Well, there are two stories that really that resonate, for me at least, in that. And there's one early on about where he goes to school and he's really heavily bullied by these two guys, and they wait for him, they ambush him, they beat him up, they spit in his mouth. Really, really quite horrible stuff. And so, anybody that's ever felt like they're an outsider for whatever reason, not necessarily for being gay or for being poor or for whatever, this kind of resonates with you.
Yeah, it's got like a... When you were describing like all the things that he's up against, I mean, it almost has like a kind of I'm trying to think. It's like a literary trope where it's like the whole village is, filled with like venomous
It's like a fairy tale.
Yes, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking of like Snow White, and I was thinking of like Beauty and the Beast
Yeah.
and stuff. Like I was thinking of fairy tales and it's a village that he's in, and he's sort of like stuck there as the odd one out. I mean, he writes, "My parents referred to my fancy ways.
Yeah.
Stop putting on those fancy ways," they'd say to me. They would ask themselves, "Why does Eddie always act like such a girl?" They'd tell me insistently, "Calm down, can't you lose the queenie gestures?" They thought I'd chosen to be effeminate, as if it was some personal aesthetic project that I was pursuing to annoy them. Yeah, I mean, like, he's
It's
constant.
nasty.
Yeah, it's nasty. And I agree. Like, there were times reading it where I sort of thought, yeah, you couldn't. I initially had that reaction of, like, this is someone with this, like, axe to grind, which I don't really care, but I wondered whether that was, like, affecting the writing in a negative way. But then, no, at other times it's more matter of fact, and then it's sort of, I don't know, like, it's sort of hard to gauge what his feelings are about his family generally. Like, like most sincerely what they are.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
I agree. And I suppose, I mean, for me, the most interesting character in the book, and this might be controversial for people that have read this, and I'm sure it was a pretty big seller, is the father. Like, I find him really interesting, and the mother as well. But yeah, I agree with you, because it's kind of like, I kept on wanting him, and this is really unfair, but like, I read it and I have my own kind of feelings about it. But I kept on wanting him to be more sympathetic about perhaps his father, perhaps his mother. They are stuck in this same situation. They have been unable to kind of extricate themselves from this cycle of poverty and alcoholism. And I think it's most evident in the father, who, he has a bad back. He works in the factory where most of the men in the village work. It's killing him slowly.
Yes.
As is his, constant drinking with his mates. And then there's the one scene where I think Eddie goes missing. He wanders off or something, and the whole village is looking for him.
Yeah.
And then they come back home, and he's sitting on the doorstep, and this triggers off this huge argument. Eddie's older brother wants to beat the crap out of him or something, and the dad stands in the way.
Yeah.
And then the dad and the older brother end up having this fight. The dad's on the ground. He's in agony. He's got this bad back. He's crying. I know it sounds funny, but like, to me it was really like, it's awful. That particular character of the father in that scene just seems completely unable to deal with his own kind of situation, his own emotions, his children, and just his life. It just seems it's terribly tragic.
Yeah. I actually felt the exact same way about the father. And it's funny because it's hard to write such a victim story and then you accidentally kind of put the reader on side with the father. Like, it's quite strange, actually.
Maybe that's why it worked. Maybe that is the way that Edouard Louis is being sympathetic. I don't know, because I do feel like there is this kernel of sympathy towards his parents, particularly his father.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time, his dad is a bore. He's a buffoon. He's horrible. He names Eddie because he's obsessed with American culture. It's like, it's weird.
They have their Billy Elliot moment at the end where, I say it's a Billy Elliot moment because, like, he, Eddie wants to go to this better university sort of like further away. Yeah. And his father basically says that he's not going to drive him to the train station or something. Yeah. Like, you're just going to have to sort it out for yourself. And then it's not until, like, the night before that he's like, I'll drive you.
Yeah.
And then the morning, Eddie's sort of meant to get up early, and his father comes in even earlier and says, get up, And then they have this kind of, like, fairly pleasant ride to the train station, and then he lets him sit with him in the car with the heating on, I think. I think that's the specific sort of aspect to it.
Sounds right.
And it just reminded me of, like, the point in Billy Elliot where I think the father takes him to the dance school to see it for the first time or whatever, and those kind of sacrifices that those men that are like completely removed from this other life, but it's sort of squashed or tarnished a little bit by the fact that as soon as he goes to university, his parents spend all this money on this jacket that he wants, and he just throws it in the bin. You know,
right.
and it's sort of like
yeah.
he seems, and again, maybe it's intentional, but he does sort of come out of it as a sort of a crueler person in some ways, despite how violent and drunk and awful everybody else around him is. Which is,
perhaps not unsurprised. I mean, look,
I don't know.
Yeah, you could sort of say he had to fight tooth and nail, and that meant in every way to get out of this poverty, to get out of this place that rejected him. But I had the same feeling, and I think I had read in the next book, I believe, he does go to university. He sort of hooks up with this woman who, or young woman whose family is sort of slightly intellectual. They drink wine with dinner, and they all that kind of stuff, and he sort of adopts them, but ultimately sort of leaves them behind. And there is some criticism, angled at Edouard Louis about that, meaning that he used people, right? And I thought that too, and I thought, that does seem that. But it's like I guess he had to.
It's what he's made into, by his circumstances and his upbringing. Like on the father. This is like early in the book. It's one afternoon while my father was waiting for the doctor, my mother let me know he wanted to tell me something. I was taken aback, accustomed as I was to the silence that existed between us. She sounded surprised too and looked up to the sky. I went into the bedroom. I walked up to the bed. My father held out something to me, a ring, his wedding ring. He asked me to put it on to take care of it because, and this is his father speaking, because I can tell, I have to tell you, your dad is dying. I can tell I won't be able to hold on much longer. Something else I need to say, it's that I love you, that you're my son no matter what. You're my first kid. End of speech. I did not find this, as one might have expected, beautiful and moving.
I'm feeling like it's moving, but yeah.
His I love you had repulsed me. The words had an incestuous feel to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's unflinching for sure. I mean, you wouldn't write that unless you actually felt that, would you? No. Unless you wanted to be deliberately kind of shocking.
I saw like a clip of him on YouTube Shorts, and he was talking about hating his brother, and he says, and to be honest, he comes across really well when he's in interviews. Like he really does kind of like, tackle difficult things head on and all sorts of things. And I have a lot of respect for it. But like he's talking about his brother dying, and he's like, no, I felt nothing. Like I hated him and I felt nothing, you know. But he's also framing that from the sense of like, he talks about sort of left and right politics, and he says the problem with the left is that at the moment they're sort of cordoning off everything that's bad, and they're saying it's monstrous, and they're getting rid of it, like cancel culture and all that sort of stuff. And he's like, no, we need to actually confront this stuff, how complex we are, and we need to really investigate the things we hate. Like, and he says because the right doesn't offer a solution. They're okay with hatred, and it was sort of like an interesting point that he was making, and actually, something I kind of agree with. I was like, yeah, like you need to look at these things, and to me, like literature, that's the space for it. But yeah, like at the same time, there's occasional moments in this where I'm like, oh, okay, like it just sort of from like a. Again, because it's published as a novel. See, I think that is why I sort of question it. Like, if it was published as a memoir, those kinds of moments where he sort of pulls the carpet out under your feet, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like, that's what you really felt. But if you were writing fiction, wouldn't you want to play into the sympathy of that moment, like the father giving the ring, and so like I think that was my not confusion, but just like
I mean, that's what it does. It does sort of it has those kind of really arresting moments where you're expecting something and you feel like you've actually been set up to get something, but you don't get it.
No,
At all. And it's interesting what you say about that interview, because like if you think about this book through that lens of what's happening in France, I don't know when the interview was, but that's exactly what he does. He confronts and examines these really difficult things, particularly violence, homophobia, and, you know, stares it down pretty much, you know, in a very kind of, in a way that perhaps doesn't leave him in a hugely sympathetic light, perhaps. I mean, from what we've been saying, but like it's pretty compelling.
It's compelling. It's absolutely compelling. Like I, I don't want to. I like the book, and I intend to read. So, as you intimated, this is the first in a series of his story. Is that right?
Well, the next one's called Change, which definitely picks up after this one finishes. And then there are other books, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. But I read those in quick succession because I was actually thinking, when we said we'd get together and do this, I was thinking, how did I come across this name? Because like it was 14 years ago that this was published. It didn't never come across one's radar or whatever. But you know, it's probably just got more to do with that I don't talk to anybody.
How did you come across it? You don't know.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think it might have been embarrassingly came up in some sort of social media context. I don't know.
Sure.
Probably. I mean, I can't remember, but actually, I remember the context of it because I'm a big fan of Hervé Guibert, who's a French writer who and sort of intellectual photographer, but he died of AIDS. But so basically, when he got AIDS, he started to write about it quite extensively, and he was considered to be the first person to sort of write his illness, if you like. And I think I remember, and it was like Edouard is doing the same thing, but about violence. He's bringing that violence into the literary space. So that's probably how I came across it, but I can't remember exactly. But
Interesting.
But I do, and I was thinking about when I was reading it on the plane, I told you the story that I was reading it on the plane on the way home from Sydney, and the woman sitting next to me hadn't said anything. We're about to get off the plane, and she said, "Oh, you're reading this book?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh yeah, I interviewed him for ABC Radio." Like, we'd sat through the whole flight, we hadn't said a word together, and I had so many questions, and then we got off the plane, and that was it. So it was pretty weird.
Yeah. Okay, that's funny. Well, I'd probably be able to figure out who that was then.
I could probably.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. No, look, I mean, there's tons of stuff that I found relatable. I mean, like, my mother smoked a lot in the mornings. I suffered from asthma, and sometimes I would have terrible attacks that left me more dead than alive. Like, just stuff like that, which, you know, it's almost like, and actually, the thing I relate most to with this is like, he's articulating something that I think is really tricky, which is like the tyranny and the cruelty of like stupid people. And like, if you're set for something else, if you've got a bit of a brain or whatever, and the unbearableness of being in the company of people who are, you know, kind of inferior to you in some sense. And I think that like, that is a very, very tough thing to sort of, you know, trot out.
Without it seeming like you're incredibly complaining or...
Without seeming that you're complaining, without alienating people who are just going to turn around and say you're absolutely obnoxious. Because, like, you know, our value set in sort of Western society is like humility, being humble, like, you know, you don't point out people's deficiencies. You don't sort of... you know, because that's part of etiquette. Like, you're not to tell someone they're stupid or unfit to be in your company is incredibly rude.
Yeah.
But some people are born into families where, I mean, there are actually just intellectual discrepancies between people. Like, they're not aligned, and trying to get along, and knowing that really you're probably never going to be able to is. I mean, that's a very hard thing to articulate. I think that's a very hard thing to confront.
Yeah, and to endure for a long period of time, because
Yeah.
As I sort of said very briefly at the beginning, it's like the rejection that he kind of experiences from the other, every other around him, is almost absolute. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and we haven't talked about it, but like in the book, he does try and fit in. You know, he tries to kind of drink cheap booze down at the bus stop with people, and I think he gets a girlfriend at one point.
Has a girlfriend for a while, yeah.
But it's all just this kind of, well, it's this desperate attempt to sort of write something that's never going to be righted, which is, like you're saying, it's like he's just surrounded by everything that rejects him, really, for better or for worse, for whatever reason kind of thing. And there's only one real pathway out, which possibly explains why he, you know, perhaps has been accused of being opportunistic or, I mean, it's, like I said, I mean, I feel like if you've ever been an outsider for whatever reason, you know, it does resonate with you, and he does write very well from that position, and as I said, sort of unflinchingly, but you know, it makes him sometimes come across as, I guess, not being that kind of, you don't feel that sympathetic with him. Which
again is almost surprising given the level of kind of like horror that he has to face. But yeah, no, it does. It does come down to how he portrays his parents, which I think ultimately he does portray them sympathetically enough that you do want to sympathise with them. Like that's the whole thing that we're saying. Like there is enough. So I also want, because he's very young as an author, like he's a very young person. And so he published all these, like at least the first two memoir / novels and non-fiction book about somebody, like a figure, like a biography, in his 20s. You know, I mean, that always sort of stands out to me as kind of like, that's a big deal. I wonder if that's him having the capacity to do those things, or whether people around him, like agent, publisher, are sort of seeing something here and cultivating it. You know, like
I couldn't say. I mean, I think in the second book he does end up going to university. He ends up in some quite prestigious university. So you know, obviously he's incredibly intelligent. You know, thinks deeply about his place in the world and how he interprets the world and how he interprets his place in the world. So yeah, I mean, it's funny that what you say about, you know, that he's this individual that ended up in a family of kind of buffoons or whatever.
Whatever you want to say.
Because I do feel I felt very sympathetic towards his whole family in a way, because I felt like they had been unable to short circuit this life, right? And maybe they never had the ambition to, or the means to, or the imagination to, but it still was deeply sad to me, I felt. And particularly the dad and the mum, you know, she gets this job caring for old people or something, and she rides around in her husband's old red Parker, and the whole town makes fun of her.
I know, it's awful.
It's awful, but at the same time,
I mean, my reaction is
one thing that she has of her own.
I know,
and she's ridiculed for it.
And I sort of, my reaction is to laugh at these things. Not it's sympathy induces this laughter. Like it's so bleak.
Unbelievable.
It's so bleak, and it's like it's comical in like that it is so farcical, that it is so awful, that it is so bleak. Like I kind of, I found myself chuckling at times, and it's like almost like a kind of a knee jerk, like, you know,
it's so kind of uncomfortable.
I mean, like the portraits of the mother, like taking on the various work, is just like, there's a point where she starts earning 1,000 euros more than the dad.
I know.
And he
shuts it down.
He shuts it down because he doesn't want his wife earning more than him. So they go from earning, she's earning respectively 1,000 and he's earning 700 euros a week.
Yeah, so he's like,
and he's like, no. So they're down as a family to only 700 across 4 of them or something. And it's like these stupid choices made out of like pride and, and that interrogation of class. I mean, like he's really good with the nuances of class. Like he has this like little point where he says, I can't remember who he's talking about, but he says, she would tell me with her voice getting louder and louder as she became more agitated, open parenthesis, I'll have the same problem when I leave and move to the city. My friends from the university will always be asking me to lower my voice. I would find myself terribly envious of the calm, self-possessed voices of well-brought-up young men. And then he goes on, close parenthesis, and it goes on. She would tell me that, blah, blah, blah. But that little thing about like a raised voice, like, and this is somebody who's grown up in a household where people communicate by yelling at each other.
That's right.
And like, I can relate to that. Like, I can relate to going off to university and being like, oh my God, people like have this nice way of talking,
which is bullshit in a way. But the other thing about this book that I feel ashamed to admit,
well, the whole book's about shame, so this is good.
But I feel quite ashamed about this. It's like, I'm like, there are Bogans in France. You know what I mean? Because like, and this is why I'm saying I'm ashamed of it, because of course if I thought logically about this, I would know that like, France is not this country that is full of sophisticated people smoking gitans and reading Foucault or whatever. No. But it was quite, I found it really kind of like confronting. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the north of France. These people, and there are photographs in the book, I think, they live in a house where the windows are all broken, the roof's leaking, and I felt stupid. I felt like, this is a France that, doesn't loom large, or at least doesn't loom large perhaps outside of France in people's imaginations.
No, and I think it's it's a side effect of a few things. I mean, one is just not living there, but so you just don't know the nuances of a culture. You're only getting the advertised to you version of any other country, right. But you're also living in a place that uses the word European to describe anything that's sophisticated.
That's true.
So you kind of make this quite redundant.
I said I was ashamed.
Yeah, but I get that. I don't know whether I had the exact same thought necessarily, but certainly I was like, man, this is a kind of a low down France, like a kind of which is kind of, I mean, it's almost great.
Absolutely.
And I suppose I would be interested to know what the kind of cultural resonances and meaning of that is in France. Like a French bogan must represent something in a cultural historic context. If you're French.
But out of context, it means something completely different. Right? And
because for me, like, this gave off like I thought of places in England, and I thought of places in the United States as well, like coal towns, like just sort of,
industrial, low socioeconomic.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a good point, because like if you think about it, and you wanted to set this book in Melbourne, let's say, or in Australia, or you started to think about perhaps books that dealt with similar territory, maybe Christos Tsiolkas is Loaded,
maybe
to some degree. I mean, it's never going to be the same, but it's sort of like, you kind of, how the kind of terrain and how where it's set sort of resonates with you is very different when you have no kind of reference point. So like, I don't know what Picardy and Amiens and these places, I've never been in.
No.
And so of course my imagination is like, oh, France, it's Paris, and it's lovely.
It's lovely.
But it's not lovely.
No, and I think I think European poverty would be like, not more confronting, I don't mean that, just because I think, I mean, the population is so small in Australia. When you think of things, they're almost containable, they're almost manageable in some sort of way. I don't fully know what I mean by that, but like, I don't know. There's just something like confronting about this because it breaks a sense of what you have of that country as well. So I don't know. It was quite bracing, I thought, reading about this. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it was.
You know, it's sort of tough. But one thing I wanted to ask was like, you know, so he's been sort of accused as a bit of a social climber and using people and what have you. But it's interesting to consider, like, for someone like Edouard Louis, if you're him, can you be him? Can you fully discover yourself and be yourself? And what's it say on the back? Can you create your own freedom and bring your family along? Or is severing that tie absolutely necessary?
I think, I mean, in his case, I feel like he definitely was going to be severing. I think he does, as I said to you, I can't remember whether it's in the second book or, I think he does sort of not reconcile, but he meets up again. His parents divorce. His father dies, but I think he has some sort of relationship with his mother. But I think that severing in the instance of this story, this narrative, is kind of, you know, preordained in a way.
Yeah, I do too, you know.
And I guess, moreover, we all do it, perhaps from our parents, more so than more completely from everything that you ever came up from, kind of thing. But I suppose he doesn't deny that that's where he's coming from. You know what I mean? It's not a severance in a kind of blinded way. He's like, because he's writing this book about it, you know. But yeah, it seems quite complete in that he decided to get out of that place, that family, the things that he was expected to do and become, even if he had to make it up. And so that's why I guess the book's called The End of Eddy, because he puts an end to it. He changes his name to become Edouard Louis rather than Eddy Balgoul.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't think, I think that there is a bit of a, I think it's a little bit harsh to put all of it, the severance and the moving on squarely on him though. I don't think the world's a big enough place to permit anything else. Like, I think the world, the external world, wants you to cut those ties. Like, as in, I've seen him on stage at these big literary writers' festivals and stuff. I'm like, his family's not being provided tickets to be there, and if they were, they wouldn't come. But I can't imagine anyone feeling comfortable. Do you know what I mean? Sure. Like that discomfort and that difference, the discrepancy between us and them, or them and us, it's complete. It's already fully formed, which is why I think you just said it's kind of like a, you know, it's written in the stars. Like, this is what's always going to happen. You know,
that's how it seems.
And you know, I think it is inevitable, but I think the world makes it inevitable too. It's not just one individual moving on. It's like, if you are to move on, it is necessary to cut those ties. Like, I don't think there's room for something else.
Well, if there's nothing that remains that is of importance to you, or important enough for you to retain it, that's what's so kind of, I mean, unusual, I think, about this, is that it's such a cut and dry kind of thing. It's like, I very clearly want to be an intellectual. I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't want to be heterosexual. There's got to be another world, which he really deliberately and clearly and quite amazingly seeks out. Like, he finds out about things, and I suppose we all do when we grow up, about the things that interest us. But it does seem, quite astounding. It's almost like in my mind, it's like, oh, here's this camp of people over here, and I'm obviously in the wrong camp. I'm just going to go over there because this is a mix-up. There's a big mix-up going on here.
Yeah. I've been assigned to the wrong group. Yeah.
That's right. But his kind of transformation from, his travels from one camp to another, he also fixes his teeth. He apparently had very bad teeth.
Oh, okay.
And I think this is in the second book, he spends a lot of time and money getting his teeth fixed up. So he actually physically transforms himself as well.
Interesting, yeah.
Because I guess bad teeth is a real kind of...
Class is teeth.
It's a class thing.
Teeth and class.
That's right.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
People talk about this a lot, yeah. I'll finish with this. Each day was a new ordeal. People don't change as easily as that. I wasn't the tough guy that I wanted to be, and yet I had understood that living a lie was the only chance I had of bringing a new truth into existence. Becoming a different person meant thinking of myself as a different person, believing I was something I wasn't, so that gradually, step by step, I could become it. The calls to conform would come later. Who does he think he is? So I'm definitely keen to read on and check out the next one in the series. I think, is there more than 2? I think there should be more. I get that feeling. But yeah, that was The End of Eddy by Edouard Louis. Go and check it out if you haven't already. And see you next week.
Bye.